What were the top innovations for the double bass? What's going on? It's Jason Heath, and there have been a lot of innovations for the double bass over the years. Like everything in the bass world, it seems like some folks love them and some folks hate them. But it's undeniable that many of these innovations have dramatically improved the lives of us bassists. So in this video, I'm going to break down my top 10 innovations for the double bass and why they make such a difference to me. Before we dive in, I'd like to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Modacity, my practice app of choice over the last 3 years, and they just came out with a version for the iPad. It is such an incredible innovation in practice technology. Record yourself with ease, listen back, track your progress, actually improve using deliberate practice techniques that Mark Gelfo, the founder of Modacity, has developed over his years in the music world. And it's just such an incredible app. I have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours in the app at this point, and it's responsible for getting me back into bass practice. Number one, and these are in no particular order, it's gotta be my bridge adjusters, whatever you wanna call them. These are such a lifesaver for any bassist, particularly if you live in a climate that moves around a lot. But even out here in the Bay Area in California, where we really don't change temperature that much, I find myself cranking them up when it gets cold in the winter, bringing them down. The bass is just so much bigger than the other string instruments that having the ability to adjust this on the fly is so useful. And I even find myself bringing them up for orchestra playing, bringing them down for solo playing or jazz playing. Having that ability to adjust like that quickly and easily is so critical. Number two, bass wheels. Oh my goodness, where have you been all my life, bass wheels? I am always perplexed when I meet somebody that doesn't believe in using one of these and wants to carry their bass around. I almost destroyed my left arm back in college carrying my bass because I was too stubborn to use a wheel. I finally picked one up back decades ago at this point, and I've always had one ever since. It makes this thing so much easier to move around. I will roll a couple miles with this thing to go play a concert, which I realize is strange, but this takes the weight off of you. It makes your life so much easier. This heavy duty one I have here with the bracket doesn't bend. Sometimes if you just have one side, you can bend, especially if you really load up your bass case. This tire was great when I was living in Chicago and getting through the snow. So bass wheel on my top innovation list for sure. Number three, I think this is a big innovation, are bass shapes. And my Jackstat bass here, I love the shape of this bass. I love the shape of lots of basses, but I love this one because it has a big lower bout, but it has smaller upper bouts. It has really deep ribs down here, but it's a little narrower up here. It allows me to get a nice big resonating cavity, but not have it be too tough to play. And the innovations that I've seen from bass luthiers for a long time, but especially in the last couple of decades, it's really cool to see what a difference it makes getting these dimensions dialed in. And bass has so much non-standardization that certain players just resonate with certain shapes. And to me, the more that's out there and the more people are experimenting, the better. Number four, and I know not everybody loves these, but especially here in the United States, they're pretty much standard bass extensions. This bass extension right here was made by Chris Threlkeld-Weigand, who's a wonderful bass maker. And this is a low B extension, which is super fun. So I've got E, all the way down to a low B. I have a lot more, probably more fun than I should with that low B, but being able to play the low notes, I mean, if you're playing in an orchestra context, it's pretty much a requirement. And even if you're not, if you're playing a jazz gig, having a low E flat string, so cool to have that right there. And I just love my extension. I like 5 strings too, but I have found this to be just so cool. And particularly these types of gated extensions, because sometimes you just need a low D. And just being able to flip it like that, awesome. Number 5, I'm just gonna call it amplification technology. We're talking pickups, we're talking mics like the Nadine that I reviewed pretty recently, and smaller amps that you can carry around, like Acoustic Image. That is so great, obviously, for jazz and styles like that. But you know, Having a little amplification, even as a classical player, if you're playing a solo with an orchestra, that is more common than you might think. So having these innovations, I think is awesome. I use the Nadine all the time for recording, totally love it. Number 6 is bow quivers. And this is such a great invention. I am so dependent on this that when I take it off, like I have off right here, I have the tendency to take my bow and almost throw it on the floor. It's so nice to be able to just have a nice spot for your bow. Obviously, if you're playing a gig where you're switching back and forth a lot, jazz gig, theater gig, this is just so useful. But you have so many things to carry as a bass player when you're walking from backstage, on stage, and all that kind of thing, that just getting your bow out of the way and right here is fantastic. I've had this quiver for years. I'm the sort of person that loses stuff like quivers and accessories, so this is not my first quiver, but just because I've lost them, not because they've ever worn out. Number 7, and I actually don't have this on this bass, but I think it's a great innovation, is a removable neck system. And more people are using this that want to travel with their bass, but not have it be a horrifying experience at the airport. There are many different cases out there on the market. I'll be sure to link up to some more information about that, but you can take the neck off of the bass, you can put it in a separate case from the body, or in some cases the same case, although I think it's usually a separate case, and that turns the airport experience from you carrying a giant and that turns the airport experience from you dragging a coffin-like thing around to something that's just like a large item. It is so much easier to just deal with life and get transportation once you get to where you're going. And yeah, I think they're an awesome system if you want to play on your bass and travel around. Number 8 are Endpin Innovations. We bass players love to experiment and see what works out there. I just use the standard Getz style Endpin right here, which has a screw-off tip. So you got this, and I can put it into the wood floor if they allow me, and if not, I have a little rock stop like thing right here. But whether it's this or rock stops like the Smart Stop, I did a review of that, or the chromatic Endpin, which is a really cool device that I think went off the market, sadly, by Emilio Guarino, and that would put the bass at more of an angle, or actual angled Endpins, wooden pins where you drill into the bottom and you get the bass at an angle. Those make such a difference for particularly the standing player, although they can have an impact on your seating too, and just finding ways to really optimize that Endpin experience. I think that's one of the biggest areas of innovation in bass playing right now. Number 9, modern bass rosin. There's so much good rosin on the market, I don't even know where to start. I got my Leatherwood Bespoke right here, which I did a few reviews about. I think I'll link these down below because there are too many to put up in the card or wherever. I've got Weedoft. I love this. This rosin is awesome. Did a review about that also. I get sent a lot of other rosins from companies. Here is Jade, French double bass rosin, green. That's interesting. I haven't even tried that. Here's another one from France also. Okay, interesting. Not green. That one's a little more amber. Of course, we got good old Pops. And even within something like Leatherwood, there are all these different levels. So finding the rosin that works for your style of playing, your particular way of playing the bass, your bow, your climate. There's so much variability. We're trying to move these giant bridge cables with good tone and with a minimum of effort. And I just really appreciate all these companies continuing to refine their formulas and really find something that connects with bass players. Number 10, this is kind of a broad category, but the innovation in strings. Wow. I mean, I got steel strings right here. I play steel strings. A lot of people don't. I like them. Some people do, some people don't. I have used synthetic strings as well, and I've experimented with gut strings. I think it's all interesting, and different playing styles and different player styles really resonate with one or another. I'm really interested in these tempura strings. Going to be doing an interview with the people behind those coming up here, but it's really cool. Not only do they sound different, but because they feel different to you as a player, you interact with your bass differently depending on the type of string you have on the bass. So it really does make a difference. Even if it doesn't make as much of a difference in the overall sound as you might think, I do think that the further away you get from a player, the less you tend to hear those subtler differences in strings. I think that you really hear a difference between, straight up gut versus like these pastoral perpetuals, but you certainly feel different, even if it's a subtle distinction, and that translates over to everything in your playing. So innovations in strings, these are where the rubber meets the road for a player. I think it's just incredible what's going on and what a giant impact this will have in your playing. There are so many other accessories, gadgets, tunings, and string configurations that make a bass player's life easier. If you want to hear more about that, let me know in the comments below. If you're in the mood for more videos like this, check out this recent video about a stool I bought and why I got back into sitting. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.